Back in 2023, I love tornadoes. For some reason, this little spinny parcel of air was so intriguing that I felt like I would devote my life to it. I would watch multiple videos of different tornadoes for hours on end, as my curiosity never stopped, even with the tornadoes I already learned about. Also in 2023, I loved creating things, whether that be game development, animation, or cool comics I can use to make intriguing stories. Well, if you put two and two together, you understand where that led me. Tornado scenarios, a growing genre on YouTube and one of my personal favorites. The genre has recently gained a rather big following due to the efforts made to enhance the quality of these videos. From its widely known brother, EAS scenarios, tornado scenarios strive to make EAS type scenarios about, get this, tornadoes. I feel like the reason I've grown to love tornado scenarios is because the time and effort to make a product like that is honestly unmatched, and I know that from personal experience from trying to make my own. Yes, they aren't perfect, not by a long shot, but the dedication to the craft to make it better is honestly wild, as some people have even changed the status quo. Now, I'll be structuring the video like this. First, we'll start with the OG, channel video that really started it all. Then we'll talk about the big three. The three creators that I think that are the most popular and influential at the moment. After that, we'll talk about the other three. The three creators that I think are not on the level of the big three, but are extremely close and very popular in their own right. Lastly, we'll have some honorable mentions. Channels that I think are really cool and should deserve some more popularity than they already have. Also, we'll be covering only one or two scenarios from each channel, as I quickly saw that this video would be way too long if I had a discography of every channel. If you want to watch them for yourselves, a video playlist will be linked in the description. Already off to a great start. Man, this video right here is one of the best videos to come out of the genre by a long shot. From what I've seen, this quality would not be surpassed until Florida Tornado Havoc in 2023. This came out in 2018. It's also the most popular by an even wider margin with a whopping 3.3 million views. There's radar imagery, one of the things that a lot of tornado scenarios were missing until around 2023, and yes, it has its flaws, but with no prior reference or anything similar to that, it's well thought out. There's also news coverage. It's relatively clear and concise. People speaking, which are most likely AI voices, are extremely realistic and down to earth. There are only a few flaws about this, mostly how there's an extreme risk could never happen due to the 66 that's already in place, but this is a hypothetical, so what was I expecting? The death toll is also absurdly high with a total count of 1,387, but even though it definitely has some backing, it does make me take the video a little less seriously and treat it more like a first try. I rated it a good 9 out of 10, one of the best of its time, but it could do better. Just Dante is one of my personal favorite creators, as the work they have done is well made and definitely one of my recommended channels for first time watchers. I personally think that his best project is Coastal Chaos, which is about the events of an intense mid-Atlantic outbreak. This video is my personal favorite because it's extremely well made and it's clear to see that heavy thought was put into the video, even with the meteorological synopsis, aka the nerdy weather stuff that only dweebs get. The way the outbreak is tracked from all different forms of media, storm chasers, news coverage, documentary style, EAS, etc. is also really intriguing. It's also a very realistic portrayal of what could happen if an outbreak like that happened in North Carolina, with the characters actually having some moments sometimes instead of generic newscaster number one. Of course, this is still a tornado scenario, so not everything was perfect. There's some cut-arounds and shortcuts that happen sometimes, but they are relatively hard to see. One more thing, Sam, a character in the scenario, comically downplaying the violent tornado event is so funny. It just denies everything that happens until, I just let you watch it. Anyway, cool 10 out of 10, very easy to track and a great video for beginners.
Hey, aren't you forgetting something?
Fine, I'll talk about FTH. Florida Tornado Havoc, otherwise known as FTH, is a scenario created by Just Dante in 2023, and is his most popular scenario by a long shot. This is one of the first scenarios, in my opinion, to have some competition with the EAS scenario created by No back in 2018. This scenario covers news coverage, radio, conversations, EAS, and even tweets during the huge 1 hour long scenario. This does have its flaws, as the video is less perfect than the aforementioned Coastal Chaos, but these mostly have to do with radar, which you probably won't notice on your first watch. Otherwise, it's extremely good with realistic depictions of characters' feelings. But honestly, it's much more tame and experimental than Coastal Chaos. 9 out of 10, could do better, but it is a modern classic. This video is the pinnacle of tornado scenarios right now, with an in-depth environmental analysis and a documentary-style take on the tornadoes which occurred that day. By the way, Instead of everyone else in the field, everything in this scenario is custom made, and most of the graphics, excluding videos and photos, were completely made by Arizona alone. The more documentary type of content also gives a little more legroom and space to focus on a bunch of tornadoes at once. It also gives the room to talk about more tornadoes than a regular EAS style scenario would. I love this scenario, honestly. It's one of the first to send a serious chill down my spine due to the eerie music and super mega storm of the century outbreak type. One of the first to do it. You have to watch it for yourself, honestly. It's not a great watch for beginners, but for Intermediate Plus, I definitely recommend. 11 out of 10, unbeatable. Wheeler YT is a classic, with its discography spanning over 6 years, starting back in February of 2019 with the even more classic quad state tornado. This is also the most popular case of a hypothetical predicting something that would happen in the future, with the quad state tornado, which was actually 2 EF4s and a couple of EF0s spread about, don't worry about that, happening late 2021. But this part isn't to talk about the quad state tornado scenario. No, this part is about another scenario. Washington's Walloping is one of the most well-made tornado scenarios from Wheeler's discography, up there with MetLife, his newest tornado scenario. This scenario has some extremely high and rather low moments, with everything being incredibly well made, including chaser and news coverage. To be honest, this does have a concerning pacing problem, with each burning being around like 4 to 5 minutes long. This doesn't seem like a long time, but when added up, this quickly takes around like a third of the video. Even with that, it's still incredibly well made, and with many saying that's Wheeler's best scenario. Even though I don't necessarily agree with it. MetLife is still my favorite, probably due to recency bias. But anyway, outside of the pacing problem, it's really cool. 8 out of 10. FT is the most unique channel on this list, as this channel is mostly a broad list of well-made ES scenarios, but a lot of his most popular scenarios have to do with tornadoes. For this section, I'll be worrying about K-June Twisters, which is one of the best tornado scenarios from the channel in my opinion. The tornado scenario is not much different from its other scenarios, usually occurring before the Switch digital in 2009, but there are some outliers. This scenario is actually extremely good, as it has multiple well-edited and extremely interesting moments as the scenario goes on. This scenario mostly covers spotters, EAS, and news broadcasts as the tornado outbreak goes on, including actual tornado graphics from spotters. I have little to nothing to say about the flaws of this scenario due to being an incredible scenario that will most likely never be talked by any other analog type scenario for a good while. 10 out of 10, definitely the best analog type scenario. Similar to FT, Eagle Eyes has a large history of EAS content outside of its tornado scenarios. Unlike FT, Eagle Eye's EAS scenarios and content outside of the EAS making is mostly weather related. A video that I would like to talk about for the section is Twisted Fury, which is, in my opinion, his most accomplished tornado scenario to date as of writing the script. I think it has the same down-to-earth tone as Coastal Chaos, but it is less widespread and more based on one news source covering the entire outbreak. This is honestly genius. It's definitely more hard focus on emotion instead of everything else, but it gets the job done. Go watch this for yourself. It's very good. 10 out of 10. Semi WX EAS, who I'll just call Semi for now, is a rather potent scenario creator in the scenario community. Slabs is probably his best scenario, and it's rather good amongst a wide variety of EAS scenarios, but it's not perfect, not by a long shot. The thing about Semi, and especially this scenario though, that I love it deep down in my heart. It's definitely a difference and a breath of fresh air from the past 7 that I've talked about. He still has a long way to go, but I've grown to love his content. 7 out of 10. 43 Studios EAS will probably be higher on this list if this wasn't his only really passionate tornado scenario that he created. No, I will not be talking about Hillsborough. Seymour Lights is actually so great, and apart from just Dante's Exandiography and Arizona's 2,662 weeks, it's actually one of my favorites. Now, it's not my favorite due to news coverage or the radar or anything that would make me love a regular tornado scenario. For me, it's the NWS reanalysis of tornado, which takes up about 15 minutes of the video. Now, if you're not a weather nerd like me, then understand why this might be a little boring for you. But yeah, it's really good, and same with 2,662 weeks. If you're intermediate plus, then you would definitely like the scenario. Lightnings are red, violets are blue. Here's a free 10 out of 10 just for you. Thriver is another name in the old school tornado scenarios, with works on par with FT in some cases. I think his best tornado scenario is North Madison. It has some flaws, such as half of the tornado being legitimately zero audio. I honestly don't know how bro let this slide at least put static. The parts that aren't just zero audio are legitimately well made though, and I see that a lot of thought was put behind this too. Because it definitely has the potential to be something like Catching Twisters. Just needs some more work on it. 8 out of 10 has a lot of potential. A random hurricane tracker, ARHT for short, is the only person on this list who has not created a single tornado scenario. That's for a good reason. ARHT is a close friend of mine, and his stories throughout the past 2 months I have met him have been absolutely incredible. If he were to ever make a scenario, it could potentially break the top 10, and it might even break into the top 5 depending on if he has the right resources. If you would like to see a glimpse of his work, I advise you to go on his community tab. And wait a second. He never told me about this.